Guess what our next topic is going to be?
I don't have any idea. Can you give me some hints?
Okay. I will give you 2 hints. The first hint is, what do you get if you cross a pomelo with a mandarin?
That's not an easy question, but I know the answer. We happen to have studied that in school. If you cross a pomelo with a mandarin, you get our common, modern orange.
Very good. That is hint number 1. The second one is, what do you get if you cross a bridge with a bicycle?
I don't know that one. What do you get?
Every time you cross a bridge with a bicycle, you get to the other side. Have you figured out what our next topic is? It is how genetics provides strong evidence that humans are a special creation by God, rather than an accidental result of biological evolution.
I can see how your first hint is about genetics, but not your silly second one.
The second hint is about someone tricking you into thinking the wrong way. Evolutionists will try to trick you into accepting their evolutionary worldview. This next topic may also help you to see that the alternative worldview, the Bible's account, is not only literally true, but it is also consistent with current science.
I understand your comparison now. For example, this graphic was developed in 1965. Although its human designers may not have intended it, this presentation has turned out to be a masterpiece of evolutionary propaganda. Prominent evolutionary scientists admit it does not correctly portray their concept of evolutionary development, but the graphic is so powerful and emotional that it is immediately and instinctively understood, and perhaps believed to some extent, by all. Even though it is known to be false, it still appears in textbooks and other locations, promoting a false concept.
One of the popular misconceptions which may have come from believing this graphic is that all of today's humanity resulted from migrations that began in Africa. That idea is often called out of Africa. However, modern genetics has shown that the beginning of human migrations was in the Mideast. The Bible tells us that they began in a Mideast location called Babel. So, genetics affirms that the Bible account of the beginning of human worldwide migration is correct. The erroneous concept of out of Africa might explain why evolutionary paleoanthropologists search in Africa for bones of a creature that would show an evolutionary link between ancient apes and humans. Let's look at a few of those and see what they have found.
Evolutionists now prefer to describe the biological evolutionary process as looking like a tangled bush or tree, with the existing and extinct creatures depicted as leaves on it. So here is our proposed evolutionary tree, with some of their favorite findings.
When scientists began unraveling gene structures, evolutionists quickly grabbed onto the notion that chimpanzees and humans had a common ancestor. The early studies claimed that human and chimp DNA were 98.5% similar. For human and chimp evolution from a common ancestor to be mathematically possible, their DNAs needed to be about 99% identical. Evolutionists thought that they had a winner. Unfortunately for them, more complete studies have revealed that chimp and human is no more than 85% similar, and it could be as low as 70% similar. Chimpanzees are no longer considered to be a possible ancient relative of ours.
One of the more interesting of the paleoanthropologist finds was nicknamed the Hobbit. The initial skeleton found, and which was reasonably complete, was a fully grown female that was 3.5 feet tall. Since she was very short, had a small-sized brain, short femur bones, flat feet, and asymmetric facial features, some researchers concluded that she was a part of a newly discovered species which eventually led to humans. Based on the bone structure, an artist constructed a drawing of what this missing link looked like. However, subsequently an anthropologist used sophisticated computer-assisted forensic techniques to reconstruct the Hobbit's face. If you saw her walking down the street, you probably would never consider her to be anything other than another human being. Studies of their cultural artifacts revealed that these hobbits were pretty advanced. They sailed between islands beyond visual range and sometimes against ocean currents. They could communicate among themselves, they crafted advanced tools, and they made complex decisions. They were as much a human as you and I.
One of the most well-known of the paleoanthropologist findings was a creature they called Lucy. A partial skeleton was discovered in 1974 and evolutionists quickly accepted her as the perfect transitional species between ape and man. Accordingly, artist drawings made Lucy look like a hairy human with an ape's head, even though the skeletal evidence was mostly missing. Lucy's was the best skeleton found of this species. However, it is only 20% complete. She was about the size of a chimpanzee, and the key bones for the hands, feet, knees, hips, and spine which would have allowed her to actually walk upright were missing. Subsequent skeleton findings of other members of this species revealed that Lucy would have had feet like tree-dwelling apes, did not typically walk upright, had ape-like hands, and had chimp-like wrists. In summary, Lucy is an extinct tree-dwelling ape. Lucy was a separate species, but clearly on the ape side of this family tree.
These next three are similar, as you'll find out. A number of paleoanthropologists consider Homo rudolfensis to be part of the Homo hablis species. All of these species had some skeletal bones that are distinctly human and other bones that are clearly ape-like. But none of them were found as connected skeletons. They were all assembled from selected bones, taken from mixed bone beds, which consisted of thousands of broken and loose bones that were jumbled together from at least 18 different species, including catfish, tortoises, apes, monkeys, and humans. Some experts believe that these are not real species of extinct creatures at all, but rather combined bones from multiple species to appear like a single new class of animals. They're claimed to be the long-sought link between apes and man has disintegrated.
If you analyze the histories of these other ancient skeletal remains, you will find that they are either extinct apes or humans that have died. There has never been a creature that is part ape and part human. Apes have always been apes and humans have always been fully human. That is the way God created them. And that is what science has found.
Let us, now, consider what the Bible teaches. It says that Adam and Eve were a special creation by God. Other Bible accounts suggest that this was about 6,000 years ago. Recent genetics research provides important information about this possibility. The mitochondria are important elements in each human cell. The genetic information in the mitochondria is called DNA. This DNA is a bit unique, in that it comes only from the mother to her male and female children.
We now know that our mitochondrial DNA is changed over time by mutations. That is right. We are all mutants. But that is not a good thing. Mutations are damage to genetic information. Mutations do not add new information to our genes, they remove it. They really do not add capabilities to us. They eliminate them or cause parts of our bodies to malfunction.
And, unfortunately for them, our descendants inherit these mutations. It is interesting, though, human mitochondrial DNA tends to accumulate at the rate of one mutation about every 6 generations. If we are clever, we can use that as a kind of genetic clock to find out how long mankind has been on the Earth.
If biological evolution is correct, then there should be at least 681 mitochondrial DNA mutations across the human population. Or, if the Bible timeline of about 6,000 years is the one that is right, then there should not be more than 123 mutations. Guess how many mutations scientists have found? Well, it is bad news for evolutionists. Scientists have found that there are 123 human mitochondrial mutations.
The Bible tells us that the next major event for humanity, after the creation of Adam and Eve, was the worldwide flood. It reduced the human population to 8 people: Noah, his wife, their 3 sons, and their wives. A different mitochondrial analysis can provide insight into this event. Since the mutations are passed down through the maternal ancestors, it also provides a genetic ancestry trail. A research biologist noted the trails led to one of 3 nodes. That means that all people are descendants of 3 women who lived about 4,400 years ago. These women are probably Noah's 3 daughter-in-laws.
We can find a similar human genetic clock from chromosomes. Humans have what are called X and Y chromosomes. But the Y chromosome is common to only males. An analysis of the mutations in the human Y chromosomes reveals that all men are descendants of a single male ancestor who lived about 4,500 years ago. I believe that would be a man named Noah. Science seems to support the Bible account that mankind was created by God about 6,000 years ago.
The Bible tells us that because of Adam's sin, all living creatures began to experience death. And that this curse extends to the rest of the creation too. Science affirms the presence of this curse. Through very careful measurement and analysis, scientists know that with any kind of action, some energy is lost. It is not just converted to a different type or to mass, it is lost. It is gone. Scientists call this increase in uselessness entropy. To me, the continuing increase in entropy means that the world is falling apart. Genetics have revealed something similar that they call genetic entropy. Living creatures accumulate mutations in their genetic structures. This is damage which causes a loss of information for reproduction in the next generation.
Combining this together and putting it into plain English, we find that the original creation was perfect. But when Adam sinned, living creatures, including humans, and the rest of the creation began to fall apart. In time, this would mean the end of all humans and the destruction of the rest of the universe. Of course, many scientists would tell you that this is a very slow process. That it won't cause any problems for thousands or millions of years. As we look into this, we have some bad news to consider. Geneticists now know that humans accumulate somewhere between 100 and 300 additional mutations to their genes with each generation.
On the plus side, our gene structure is a marvelous design. It is very resistant to errors in its structure causing any problems. So most of these mutations to our genes are not obvious as we pass them to our children. But there is some worse news about it. Some scientists have modeled the human genome and used it to study the effects of these increasing mutations. Their studies show that human beings are probably only viable for about 300 generations. Therefore, if a generation is 20 years, then the humans will only be okay for a total of about 6,000 years. After that, the species would die out. If man's creation was about 6,000 years ago, we could be nearing the end of that process. Don't get too worried about that thought. These calculations are just an estimate. But it does show our downward genetic trend. We also have some good news for you.
The Bible tells us that the earth will be around for at least 1,007 more years. Near the beginning of that period, Christ will come back to earth and run things himself. Our scientists don't know enough about human genetics to repair the thousands of years of mutation damage, but Christ does. He created it and he'll know how to fix it. The Bible tells us that, as a result, during that time, no babies will die. That people that are 100 years old are still considered young. And people will have long lives.
Most important of all, the Bible tells us that at some point, each person that has accepted Christ as the Lord of their life and their Savior from sin will be given an immortal body to spend eternity with Him.
We conclude that there are no links between ancient apes and the human species. Apes have always been apes, and humans have always been humans. Analysis of mitochondrial DNA has provided exciting evidence that the human species is quite young. Humans probably have existed only a few thousands of years. On the other hand, studies of genetic entropy help us understand that it is not possible that the human species has been on the Earth for more than thousands of years. Although there are unknown factors in calculating how fast genetic entropy is progressing, it is clear that our species could only exist for thousands of years. Certainly not hundreds of thousands or millions of years as envisioned by evolutionists. The bottom line is that there is no scientific support for evolution's concept of human beginning. It is refreshing that the biblical account is strongly affirmed by current scientific findings.